What if you were a soldier during the Vietnam War, sent on a rescue mission deep in the jungle? Unfortunately, you realize that this place is the last spot on Earth to house living dinosaurs, and they're definitely hungry for human meat. What would you do in that situation? This is the story of Primitive War, a movie released in 2025, and I'm about to recap it, tell you how many unlucky folks didn't make it, and give you the best tips to beat this cursed place. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more dinosaur movies I'll be bringing, and most importantly, obliterate that like button. The movie starts in 1968, where we see an elite American platoon known as the Green Berets. The leader is calling for help over the radio while having a full-blown panic attack. He explains that 4 members of the team are dead, and we see some of them lying on the ground. The only survivors are the leader and one soldier who's watching the perimeter behind him. In this case, I should say, was watching, since the soldier looks up toward the trees and is suddenly yanked up by a mysterious creature. The squad leader totally loses it and starts shooting at more creatures approaching from the ground, but it doesn't take long before he gets eaten too. The main mistake these 2 survivors made was staying in the same spot for way too long. They could have made the rescue call while moving, since the equipment didn't need to be on the ground to be used. This would have allowed them to find a safer place, like a cave or maybe a big rock to hide behind. What I'm saying is, they shouldn't have sheltered under the trees, which obviously are used as hunting routes by some very carnivorous dinosaurs. A few days later, we meet 2 army bureaucrats named Ibex and Bishop. Their mission is to investigate a shipment of nuclear material being used by the Soviets in the region. When the duo arrives in the village, they run into Major Wallace, a guy who couldn't care less about the locals and mocks the 4 dead bodies lying on the ground. Then a native woman approaches him and says that a feathered demon dragged her husband into the forest, but the soldier tells her to get lost and go to hell. The Major takes the duo to some barrels, where Ibex measures the radiation of the shipment and confirms there's a small leak, which unfortunately poisoned another native who's lying on the ground but still alive. Ibex and Bishop call Colonel Jericho, the head honcho of the operation, and tell him this is the 5th nuclear shipment they've found along this trail. The duo offers to go after the Green Berets, who by this point have probably ended up in the stomachs of the dinosaurs. The mission of these unlucky guys was to track these shipments, which led to each of the 6 members becoming Dino Chow. Despite the idea, Jericho says that's too risky since the platoon isn't responding to the base anymore. That's when the colonel comes up with a better idea. Send in the Vultures, the jungle rescue specialists in Vietnam. We see the Vultures rescuing some American soldiers in captivity, adding 3 more soldiers taken down by the Viet Cong to their tally. The Vultures arrive, blasting away at the enemy soldiers, sending 12 Viet Cong to meet their maker. The star of the team is Logan, a badass sniper who sends most of the enemies straight to the grave. The mission ends successfully as the Vultures manage to save 2 American soldiers still alive. The bad news hits when they return to base, where the colonel informs them that they've been specially selected to go to the valley where the Green Berets disappeared. When the soldiers ask about the mission of the elite squad, Jericho says it's strictly classified and they're not to share this with the Vultures.
Wait. Just go.
The leader of this group is Baker, a veteran who handpicked every member of his team. The one thing they all have in common, they're all completely crazy. Baker tells Jericho he doesn't like this mission, but the colonel promises to bury an investigation the army is running on Baker's past, which convinces the Vultures leader to take the job. Speaking of the crazy squad, we meet another sniper named Keys, Logan's best friend and the only one who knows that Logan's schizophrenic. The mental illness leads the soldier to hear multiple voices in his head, which, according to him, help him hit his targets, so it's not all bad. The second in command is Xavier. Along with him, we have Eli, a soldier with a stash that screams 70s vibes, and another rifleman named Miller. Of course, the Vultures had to have a Pyromania fan, and that's Leon, the rookie on the team and explosives expert. At night, we see the Vultures flying in a helicopter toward the valley where the Green Berets disappeared. The pilot reports that something is messing with the vehicle's instruments. As they look out the window, the soldiers see a wide trail with several trees knocked over, and they wonder what the hell could have caused that. Upon landing, they find the Green Berets camp completely destroyed, and on the ground, they find a triangular footprint from some animal they've never seen before. Baker also spots a large feather on the ground, and Leon guesses it was from a bird called a cassowary that passed through there. Forget about that, because Baker finds the diary of the Green Berets leader. After reading the contents, he discovers they were hunted down. According to the notes, the elite squad squad was searching for station number 4. The Vultures analyze the maps and decide to head in the same direction. The trouble begins when Baker gets bitten in the foot and is dragged into the jungle at high speed. He's quick on the trigger and shoots at the creature, which runs off scared. The first mistake these guys made was entering the valley at night, when it's tough to see because of the darkness. On top of that, the dense vegetation makes it hard for them to anticipate animal attacks, especially in Vietnam, known for having crocodiles, pythons, tigers, and a bunch of other alpha predators, so the odds of them getting eaten are pretty high. The best idea would have been to head to the valley first thing in the morning, which would also help avoid exposing the Vultures to the intense heat of the Vietnamese jungle. According to military intelligence reports, the valley wasn't patrolled by enemy forces, which means the Vultures helicopter had no risk of being shot down by the Viet Cong or Soviets. Given they chose the nighttime approach, the Vultures could have at least brought along night vision goggles, which, by the way, were heavily used in this very war. That way they could have spotted the threats approaching and shot the damn dinosaurs before the first attack even came. Of course, the sound of gunfire reaches a Soviet patrol. The vodka lover's mission is to shoot the Vultures if they get too close to their secret base. They're being guided by a native woman named Con Hen, who despises the Americans after some soldiers wiped out the village where she lived with her family. The Soviets hear an animal moving and split up to search for it, which is obviously a huge mistake because if they had stayed together, they would have had a better chance of surviving by shooting the dinosaurs all at once. But who cares, because Soldier Alexander gets left behind and becomes food after a raptor bites him in the head. Back to the Vultures. One of them finds a sharp claw on the ground, clearly from an animal that's definitely not a Christmas turkey. They also find part of a Green Berets uniform and track the soldier into a cave. It doesn't take long before the group stumbles upon the remains of some of the platoon, and that's when the Vultures realize they've walked right into the nest of a bunch of Deinonychus.
Oh my god!
A full-on show of feathers, blood, and hysterical screaming kicks off, with the soldiers realizing that their bullets aren't enough to take out the whole pack, forcing them to flee. However, Logan doesn't take any crap and throws a grenade at the dinos, blowing a few of them up in one go. This means that the grenades don't have enough firepower to cause structural damage to the cave, so it won't collapse if the grenades explode. This also means the other soldiers could have used the grenades strapped to their uniforms. That would have turned the Deinonychus into rotisserie chicken and given the group time to think rationally once the danger was eliminated. The chaos ends up splitting the group. Leon and Baker head off one way, while the rest of the team goes in the other direction. If you're wondering which team is more screwed, the answer is definitely Baker's, because on their way back into the jungle, he and Leon come face to face with a sleeping T-Rex. The bad luck of Baker and Leon is that the beast babies wake up for dinner, and they end up waking Mama T-Rex too. If you think staying still will stop the T-Rex from seeing you, I hate to break it to you, but that's the best way to get devoured in a matter of seconds. This myth became popular because of Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park book, where it's explained that the T-Rex's DNA was completed with frog DNA, which can only see movement. In reality, millions of years ago, the original T-Rex had excellent vision, regardless of whether its prey was moving or not. With the ability to spot objects from 6 kilometers away, if the T-Rex sees you, you're definitely on the menu for the day. This means that the best thing Leon and Baker can do right now is run faster than Usain Bolt late for a bus. Seeking tight spaces like caves and holes would also be a good idea, at least to wait until the beast loses interest in eating them. The duo could have also climbed the tallest tree and shot at the beast with the aim of hitting its eyes and maybe blinding the T-Rex. However, they'd still be in the sights of the Deinonychus, who can climb trees, as we saw with the Green Beret getting eaten at the start of the movie. The lucky thing for Leon and Baker is that their cardio is on point because the beast chases them until dawn without showing any signs of tiring. The duo manages to gain some distance from the beast, and since Leon is the explosives expert, he could have set up some of the explosives in his backpack and detonated them to make a nice T-Rex barbecue. Unfortunately, he prefers to hide behind a log with Baker, which obviously doesn't fool the T-Rex. Desperate, they jump off a cliff and fall into the river, with the T-Rex proving its persistence by diving in after them. Leon passes out from the impact of the fall, forcing Baker to drag the rookie to the riverbank, where a Russian woman named Sophia suddenly appears. Pay close attention to this woman because she'll be a pain in the ass throughout the entire movie, claiming she saved the soldiers' lives, when all she really does is grab Leon's arm and ask the two of them to stay quiet when the T-Rex passes by.
The woman who just saved your lives, thank you very much.
I saved your life.
Shut up!
Leon spits out the water and asks if that beast was a T-Rex, which suggests he skipped his biology classes. Sophia takes Leon and Baker to an abandoned Soviet shelter where she explains that the T-Rex was a female, and the male is out hunting in the forest. This means it's highly likely that the rest of the vultures became T-Rex chow. I don't think so, because it looks like they're having a blast hanging out with a bunch of apatosaurs. Anyway, Sophia is a paleontologist and says that place was a Soviet research base where they wanted to open wormholes to teleport to the United States and destroy the enemy from the inside out. The problem is that the idiot in charge of the experiment was General Borodin, who, in his rush to complete the mission, took unnecessary risks, and the collider used in the project made the particles move faster than the speed of light, resulting in the opening of a portal between the past and the present. This allowed several dinosaurs from the Cretaceous period to end up in that valley during the Vietnam War. Sophia's husband and the other scientists tried to question the general's orders, but the guy had them wiped out. Then he moved the experiment to another base, and he's still trying to crack open that damn wormhole. Being stuck out there drove Sophia into a morphine habit. She leans on the stuff just to take the edge off all the stress. She tells Leon to use the radio and call for backup, but Baker shuts her down, saying they're not leaving that valley until they track down the rest of the vultures. Speaking of which, the crew's crossing an open field when Soviet war dogs charge them. The guys unload on the beasts without hesitation, but Keyes still takes one in the leg. The nationality duel is interrupted by a flock of Quetzalcoatlus, which swoop in and decide to hunt the slow humans. At this point, the soldiers should have fled the fight by crawling through the vegetation, something that's pretty common in army training. The trick here is to stay out of the beast's sight until reaching the tallest trees, where the Quetzalcoatlus can't get through due to their size. One of the Soviets, named Tolstoy, is a real idiot and gets up. He could have unloaded the entire clip of his AK-47 into one of the birds. But no, he just stands there admiring the dinosaur and ends up getting eviscerated.
What an idiot!
The Russian banquet allows the Americans to escape into the forest, where they conveniently meet up with Baker and the others. Since the humans can't catch a break, they're surrounded once again by the Deinonychus, and this time things get ugly, as Keyes is dragged away by one of the beasts. You know what I find most incredible? The soldiers could have given Keyes a pistol to defend himself on the ground, remembering that his leg had been shot. That way, he could have shot from that position. Forget it, because his comrades basically forget about him, only realizing how dumb they were when Keyes is asking for help from the heart of the jungle. One of the little demons attacks Keyes, who miraculously manages to kill it with a knife. The sniper is still tough enough to stand, and at that moment he could have changed his fate significantly if that idiot had just pulled the pins from the 2 grenades strapped to his chest and blown up the 4 dinos in front of him. But who cares, because by some miracle the Deinonychus run off. Still, Keyes' priority is to light a cigarette to relax. At this point, the soldier should have headed back to the rest of the group, as the Deinonychus could return at any moment, but whatever. Unfortunately, Keyes doesn't know that a more dangerous predator just arrived, as a raptor attacks him and rips a good chunk of his intestines out. And as if the guy was raised by Chuck Norris, Keyes grabs the knife from the ground and stabs the raptor in the eye, leaving it one-eyed on the spot. The cavalry arrives again and opens fire on the Cyclops, who's a tough bastard and manages to escape. The group realizes that Keyes is on the brink of death, so they decide to take the sniper to Sophia's base, where they inject him with morphine. However, Baker asks for more morphine from the addict, who pretends not to understand and prefers to inject it into herself. The woman says she stubbed her toe on a corner and is in pain, which is a lie, since she and Baker end up having a boring argument about their duty to the country they serve. Fortunately, the discussion is interrupted by a flock of Utah raptors led by the Cyclops, who's out for some cold, raw revenge. At this point, the only way to beat the situation would be to put all the soldiers in the same corridor with just one entrance and one exit. That way they could concentrate fire on the door and throw grenades to take out the 6 raptors Sophia says came through the portal. I'm referring to the classic Spartan war tactic, when 300 warriors led by Leonidas held off thousands of Persians trying to invade Greece at the Thermopylae Pass. But who cares, because Sophia remembers there's a boat docked for them to escape, but the engine's broken. Baker believes the soldiers can fix it, but the raptors surround the survivors in a matter of minutes. That's when Keyes has the brilliant idea to sacrifice himself by staying behind. He smokes a cigarette courtesy of Logan and blows himself up with the damn 2 grenades grenades he could have used earlier to save himself. The soldiers fix the boat and navigate the river. At dawn, Sophia goes into morphine withdrawal and passes out. When she wakes up, she tells Baker that they need to stop the Russian general because the bastard is going to destroy the planet with the particle collider experiment. Baker then decides to postpone his Caribbean vacation and radios Colonel Jericho, explaining that they're going to destroy the Soviet base. The leader of the Vultures takes the opportunity to ask for a rescue, but the colonel wants to use the same collider to win the war and make the States the most powerful nation in the world. The conversation is interrupted by two Spinosaurus who hit the boat, but to our disappointment, the film ignores these dinosaurs and has them hunting a pack of Triceratops. Later, the Vultures disembark, but the easy mode is over, and they have to cross a foggy field where we see 4 more people being eaten by dinosaurs. It doesn't take long before they're attacked again by the Deinonychus, with Logan losing his patience and going completely schizophrenic. The bastard attracts the beast's attention and sits by a creek where he hears Keyes' voice telling him that he's a hero. Logan thanks him and gives himself a bullet in the head, opening the way for the dinos to feast on the crazy guy's flesh. At this point, the Vultures make a huge mistake, and I'll explain why. In hostile territory, soldiers need to set up a tactical formation, and in this situation, they had to cross an area where they could be attacked from all sides. Because of this, the soldiers should have set up a wedge or diamond formation, which ensures that everyone keeps an eye on a different part of the field. However, stupidity prevails as they walk in a straight line, and Leon gets distracted, falling behind. This pretty much served the idiots on a silver platter, which resulted in the unnecessary sacrifice of Logan. As night falls, we see the Americans infiltrating the Soviet base, where General Borodin pressures the soldiers to finish the experiment as soon as possible. It's here that those Soviet soldiers, who were hunted by the Quetzalcoatlus rebel against the general, calling him crazy. This lands Nikita and Sergei in jail. While the Bolsheviks argue, the Americans take the opportunity to plant explosives throughout the base. Baker also frees the rebellious Russian soldiers and asks if they're interested in catching some sun in Miami after helping the Americans destroy the collider. The Russians agree to the deal and help the Americans go after the general, with Leon and Xavier taking down 2 Soviets in the process. That's when a Russian soldier calls the general over to show him a huge screw-up, as Borodin sees a T-Rex baby lying dead on the ground. The general immediately senses his precious is being crushed as Mama T-Rex and Papa T-Rex arrive for their revenge on the humans. It was really hard for me to count how many people became T-Rex lunch, so hit the like button to award me for my efforts. In total, I counted 12 soldiers eaten and 2 more shot by Eli. Anyway, one thing that bothers me about this third act is the lack of preparation from the Soviets, who really don't come off well in the intelligence department. The first thing they should have done is set up lookout towers at the base's entrance to observe. If big dinosaurs like T-Rex were approaching, they could have warned the other soldiers and delayed the beast's invasion by firing bazookas straight at their faces. They could have also surrounded the base with landmines just so the perimeter wouldn't be invaded by Americans and smaller dinosaurs like the Utah Raptors. Instead, they went with option C, being incredibly stupid and ending up inside the stomachs of the T-Rex. Anyway, the T-Rex retreats after causing chaos, while Baker and the others manage to stop the general before things get worse. The problem is, Sophia notices the final test has already begun, and the collider is about to open another portal. The only way to stop this from happening is cutting the wires to disarm the device, which Sophia manages to do. That's when the Utah Raptors invade the place. The situation gets even worse as Sophia was wrong. There weren't just 6 beasts that crossed the portal, but around 457 who begin chasing our heroes. Nikita promised nothing and delivered nothing as he's devoured by the Raptors along with Borodin. Meanwhile, we see Miller being attacked by Con Nen as we find out that the soldier had killed the woman's son during the village massacre. The little boy shows up with 3 other youngsters, significantly raising our body count. Miller knows he screwed up and asks for forgiveness from the woman, but she doesn't accept and says that only God can forgive him. Since Miller doesn't like being stabbed 25 times and gets fed up with the woman, the Marine then pulls the pin on a grenade and blows himself up along with the angry Vietnamese woman. We then see the survivors survivors fleeing from the raptors through the other side of the collider, but Eli gets caught and eaten by the beasts, which makes Baker vow not to lose another vulture. He tells Sophia, Xavier, and Leon to escape while he runs off to set off the explosives to prevent Jericho from getting his hands on that powerful technology. Speaking of the Colonel, he arrives with the cavalry, but I honestly don't understand why they land the helicopters while a swarm of raptors is closing in. In this case, Jericho should have hovered over the ground to rescue the Vultures, since they have valuable information about the Soviets' project, especially Sophia, who worked alongside General Borodin. They only needed to stay on the ground for 10 seconds and then take off again. But no, we need a beautiful scene where the Americans, Sophia, and Sergei gun down the raptors while getting soaked from the pouring rain. We see 2 soldiers becoming dino snacks, and Bishop too, but no one really cares. Realizing the raptors are kicking the soldiers' butts, Jericho orders a retreat. Baker detonates the last explosive while being attacked by the Cyclops, leading the leader of the Vultures to get roasted by the furious beast. The next morning, Jericho says that the arms race won't stop with the Collider's explosion, as it's only a matter of time before the States and the Soviet Union develop even more powerful weapons. In a way, the Colonel is right, as we see the dinosaurs leaving the valley and spreading throughout Vietnam. Primitive War got slammed by critics, but the audience loved it. Thank God we finally got a solid dinosaur flick after that dumpster fire that was Jurassic World Rebirth. I'm totally siding with the fans here. Primitive War feels like the perfect mashup of Jurassic Park and gritty war movies like Platoon and Saving Private Ryan. A lot of that comes down to the solid character work such as Logan, Baker, and Sophia. On top of that, you've got the sheer terror of being hunted by prehistoric monsters, and the special effects are surprisingly good considering the shoestring budget. It's not perfect due to some scenes Baker and Sophia, which drags the pacing. Therefore, I'm giving Primitive War a solid 8 out of 10. The movie had a super limited release in Australia, New Zealand, and randomly Nicaragua. With a budget of just $7 million, Primitive War has only pulled in $217,000 so far, so the producers are clearly banking on streaming to turn a profit worldwide. It's incredible how realistic the creature turned out to be with such small amount of money invested here. Since the film's based on a novel with multiple sequels, I'm really hoping we'll get a second installment. If you guys want me to take it down here on the channel, drop a comment saying I want it. Without further ado, let's get into the body count. The movie racks up a total of 62 kills, and the body bag award goes to Tolstoy, who got chomped by a Quetzalcoatlus. Don't forget to hit the like button and see you on the next video.